Welcome to the Friends with Money podcast, brought to you by Money Magazine, creating financial freedom for Australians since 1999.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Friends with Money podcast. My name is Michelle Baltazar. I'm the editor-in-chief here at Money Magazine. Thank you for joining us. Today, we are discussing the topic of how to get started in shares investing. More specifically, can you do it with just $100? To talk about this, our guest is Brooke Roberts, director and co-founder of Sharesies, a wealth development platform that became available to Australians early 2001, but was founded in New Zealand back in 2017. Sharesies allows over 500,000 investors to buy and sell portions of shares in companies and exchange-traded funds across the Australian, New Zealand, and US markets with no minimum investment. I think they had me at no minimum investment. Brooke, welcome to Friends with Money.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here on your podcast.
No dramas. So I know that a lot of people are quite intimidated about the thought of investing in shares, like it's this big scary decision that they have to make and that they need thousands of dollars to get started. But in fact, you can do that now, as you've provided with Sharesies, with no minimum investment, but even like with $100. According to one research, if someone started putting $250 into an investment platform each month for 10 years, and if the share market on average returned 9%, then a $3,000 every year investment for the next 10 years turns out to deliver $16,000 in total returns over that period. So I think it's quite useful to say, you know what, if you have $200 or $100 or $1,000, you can definitely do it. But Brooke, tell us about your own journey. How did you get started investing in shares?
I consider my first investment something I did for my little sister, actually, when she was at high school. I noticed that actually she needed to do a bit more there for her. So I, in my early 20s, started funding her to go to a school that could provide better support for what she needed. And I always considered that an investment in my first investment. But when you talk about the first investment in shares, I had heaps of plans to do that. I studied finance. I had the only place I could really get access to investing was through either brokers or this online bank, this securities platform. And I went to sign up for it, went to invest. The fees were just ridiculous. The platform experience was not great. And I just didn't feel like that is how I wanted to invest. And so my first access to shares was when I became an employee at Xero, and they gave me shares as part of my employee share scheme. But I actually purchased my first ever shares myself through Sharesies once we launched.
That is amazing. So I think a lot of people also get their first exposure to shares when they get equity from their company, for example, like you said, with Xero. So once you got started and you're using Sharesies, what were the basic strategies that you employed to kind of build your shares portfolio?
Well, when we first started Sharesies, back in 2017, we had 6 exchange traded funds on our platform. So there were 6 investment options we could pick from. So to make sure that I could understand everybody's experience, I think I just picked all of them. And the thing that we did with our platform is we really work on making sure that we remove barriers to investing. So there's no minimum investment. So I didn't have to put heaps of money in. I could literally, put however much I wanted into these investments. And we really want to make sure that people feel like they can build their knowledge and confidence through experiencing investing, and so that was a key part of how we developed Sharesies. But now we have over 8,000 investment options on our platform, like you mentioned, and so my strategy has developed quite a bit. And I'd say the main way that I do invest is through auto invest, so investing regularly every payday.
Well, from 6 to 8,000, that's insane. But at least does that mean then that there are plenty of choices now for someone who's just coming into the platform today?
That's was our intention, is we want to give someone with $5 and $5 million the same money opportunities. So unlocking those investment options in Australia, New Zealand, and the US to more and more people is a big part of why we've added all those investment options, as well as making sure that there's a range based so people can pick the type of investments that work for them, whether they want higher risk or lower risk investment options, if they want to invest in certain themes like robotics or clean energy or global water supply chains to like there's a bunch of different ways that people may want to invest, and we wanted to make sure that those options are available to them.
You talk about clean energy because there's now like a groundswell of investors who want to invest ethically, or they want to make a strong statement about climate change and what kind of companies they would put their money in. So, how do you invest in line with your values using like an investment platform?
Yeah, when we did our initial research on Sharesies, we learnt that people's values and their beliefs, they really differ, and what somebody calls a ethical, sustainable investment option can be really different to somebody else. And there's kind of like a continuum there with a whole range of views on that. So that's another important part of having that choice in terms of what to choose to invest in. So you can really start to build an investment portfolio that is in line with your goals, beliefs, and essentially your behavior too of how you want to be investing. And for me, I really am aware that money I invest is being put to work. It's either investing in companies to support them with growing their team or producing goods and services that we want to see in the world. And so making sure that my money is going to places that are in line with my values are really important. And on Sharesies, I can filter based on certain things that I want to be seeing in a company or a fund that I'm looking at. And also there's some auto invest options that help me decide if I want to pick more of a responsible order or be a bit more globally diversified. So there's a range of options on there that have supported me to invest in line with my values.
But the downside, I guess, of having a range of options, and I see that with my friends, when I talk about, well, how do you get started in investing? And I would say, well, here are a few choices. And once I give them choices, they're like, Michelle, can you just do it for me? And I'm like, no, because legally I cannot do it for you. But how do you overcome analysis paralysis once you've like opened the door to this myriad of choices or investments?
Yeah, and that is so true. Like it can feel overwhelming, even just becoming an investor, let alone, picking your first investment choices and feeling this pressure of you got to pick the right time or the right investment. And people do have different investing strategies, and that might work for them. But for the majority of people, it's about developing that habit of putting money away for investing into, so that in the future you may have the opportunities that you've been wanting, if and being able to potentially take a bit more of a higher risk approach to hopefully get higher returns too from investing in it for a longer term. So I think that long term view is quite important when you're thinking about investing, going how long do I want to be and have this investment for? What am I investing for? Is it for my retirement? Is it so I can have opportunities in the future? Is it to create a family? Whatever it might be, having that view is quite helpful, and that long-term view can help you go, okay, cool. Well, during that time, what are things that I really believe in, and what are things that I want to see happen in the world, and where do I think the world's going, and do I believe that these investment options are the right ones? So, it can kind of be as looking at it like that, to looking at things like exchange traded funds, where you're investing not just in a company, but a fund that invests in a range of companies based on certain things. So there's like the Australian top 200, where you're investing in a fund that tracks the top 200 companies in Australia, or or like we were talking about before, certain themes or things of interest like clean energy or whatever it might be for you. So there are a lot of options out there, but the filtering in the app, where you can choose the risk rating you're interested in investing in. So how much risk you're keen to take. You can also look at how much, like the type of themes or the countries you want to invest in too. So you can to start narrowing down those choices through filtering what's important to you.
It's a matter of getting started and saying, yes, this is what I know. So starting small, and I think that's where not having a minimum investment is a good start, and really just kind of feeling the experience of investing in shares. Because I've gone through it before. When I first started, it's just so scary. I feel like I'm going to lose the shirt that I'm wearing, even if it's irrational, right? And with Sharesies, you've been in the market now for almost 5 years, gone through the lows of COVID in 2020 when markets started falling. What's been the general experience for your investors, riding the wave and also getting caught in the crash?
The general view for investors is that, I think that there's a lot of excitement or that they can be an investor and they have started to build their portfolio and that opportunity to develop wealth for the long term. So we've seen a lot of people really start to make investing a habit for them. And whether it be putting money away every payday or whenever kind of the frequency that best works for them. And I think that there's a real understanding that markets do go up and down and taking that long term view. And that's something that we've seen a lot of investors really understand too. So we really care about creating a wealth development platform, not a trading platform where, it's buy, sell, buy kind of thing. It's about how can we help ourselves build wealth for the long term and taking that long term view by investing also amounts that you can afford.
And so you've talked about auto investing, and yes, like you said, it's just that extra amount that you take away on payday, whether it's $200 or $300. But can you name your top tips for people who are new to investing and thinking, yes, this is the right time now? What else can you do besides auto investing?
One is know that you can be an investor. I think there's still this rhetoric or this kind of feeling in our minds that, oh, that's just something for the wealthy few, or that's not really something for me. But now with the technology available today and the access to these markets, it is a lot more accessible to be an investor and start building that confidence and motivation to learn and develop the knowledge of investing. Another is, I guess, that old adage, it's time in the market, not timing the market. Like it's really, really hard to pick the times of when something's at it, the best time to buy or the best time to sell. Like it is really tricky to do. And if everyone could do it, I think, that it just doesn't work that way. So that time in the market is a bit of a saying around just, and, if you're deciding to invest regularly, you don't need to, like maybe timing the market could be it is really tricky. And so there are other ways about going with investing. And I think the other tip is like, it's amazing what you learn when you just start doing, once you start investing and how the world starts getting a bit more attuned to you, you start following the news, you're like, oh, I think, I've invested in that, or, oh, that's what's happening in the market. And this is what I'm seeing in my portfolio. And you start to see these connections of what's happening in the economy or the conversations with your friends or at your work or whatever it might be, and how you start to see how all of that comes together, and that helps starting to inform your view of what how you may want to be developing your investment strategy or your portfolio over time.
Yes, it is truly a case of learn as you go, I think. I don't think you can ever prepare for investing in a way that you think, right, I know everything now, and then I'm going to go in and invest. It's almost like, so that's what happens. But I find that even with myself, whenever I'm with my shares portfolio and I see what happens with the companies, you can really see the direct link between how the economy is working and how these companies are faring, unless you invest in crypto, of course, which is a separate story altogether. But Brooke, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for your time. It's great to have been here. Cheers.
Yes. Before we go, don't forget that if you enjoyed listening to the Friends with Money podcast, we'd love for you to recommend it to your own friends and family, Or you can help us out by leaving a review on iTunes or the Apple Podcast app. You can also send in any questions, comments, or even topics you'd love for us to cover through our dedicated email, which is podcast@moneymag.com.au. You can send us any questions you have on shares investing, and we'll pass them along to Brooke. And finally, make sure you head over to moneymag.com.au for all the latest financial news and stories. That's it for this episode. I'm Michelle Baltazar. Bye for now.
Thanks for listening to the Friends with Money podcast. For credible, independent, and easy to understand financial commentary, visit moneymag.com.au. Please remember that the views and opinions expressed in this podcast are general in nature, and further independent advice and research based on your personal circumstances should be sought before making an investment decision.